BLOCKTV. It's time now for Chain Breakers, where we take a look at disruptors in action. Today, I speak with a company that's looking to cement their role in the newest innovation. Crypterium is going all in on the as-yet unreleased Telegram Open network, offering a limited pool of set-price grams to its 500,000-strong user base before grams even go to market. All this coming as the TON project moves ahead, releasing their terms and conditions ahead of this month's launch. I speak now with Crypterium COO and co-founder Austin Kim. Austin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Asher.
All right, so start off with, Austin, if you could just detail a little bit about what Crypterium is aiming to do with this pre-release gram sale that you guys have put out there.
Well, I think the key is not to think of this as a capital raise or a profit move. What we're interested in is offering to our user base a very highly anticipated token that's very difficult to get. So those people who have followed the token know that it was sold to a very select group of private or big institutional investors, and until now, the average person just has not been able to access it. So we just thought it would be a really good idea to give our users the opportunity to get their hands on some before they become publicly tradable.
Right, but so on that note, I mean, you guys yourselves don't necessarily have the grams in place that you're looking to sell. I mean, you are currently looking to be buying on the open market at the time of launch as well, if I understand correctly. Does that not put you guys at some sort of risk? Should we see a skyrocketing price on the day of launch that you've locked in these pre-sale prices, pre-release prices?
No, of course, what we have done is we've talked to a number of providers of the token. So there were about 170 institutional high net worth buyers. They bought them with the expectation that they would be able to release them when the TON network goes live. The initial estimates of the TON network going live was early in the year. So there's a lot of institutional buyers out there have been holding the tokens a little bit longer than they expected. So there's a small supply that people are prepared to effectively sell at a pre-agreed price, either through an exchange with a pre-agreed agreement or directly. So we're not taking any company risk. We have a limited supply, it's not unlimited, of course, with a agreed price structure. And that's how we're offering it to our customers. So we're actually not setting the price, the sellers are setting the price, and that's been based upon existing sales that have already taken place. So for example, Liquid did a release a few weeks ago, and they sold them at $4, and we're roughly at the same price.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it seems like it should certainly be an interesting launch, given we've seen initial investors bought for a couple of rounds, down at at 38 cents and $1.33 in those initial investing rounds. Although, as you said, they've been sitting on them for a distinctly long time, some as long as 2 years. Now that it's finally coming to market, what are your expectations for Gram? Do you think it's going to be able to deliver on so many of the promises that it's been laying out for such a long time?
That's a very interesting question, because Telegram has been exceptionally secretive about their project. As far as I'm aware, they've never even publicly announced that their project even exists, although of course there's been a lot of press on it. So it's very hard to say whether they can deliver on what they've been promising, but they're the first player really with any significant user base that's having an attempt. Of course, I wouldn't call it an ill-fated Facebook attempt, but it's clearly a difficult Facebook attempt at the moment. And it looks as though TON is going to get in there first. They've got 200 million users, 70 billion transactions a day. And if you follow the payments industry, not just the blockchain industry, if you look at, say, what WeChat and Alipay have done in China, then there is no reason to assume that a messaging app can't become the foundation of a payments network. So whether they can deliver or not, who knows? But I think they've got a very good, strong base to have a go. And also, just one last point, timing often is everything when it comes to token releases. And really, altcoins at the moment, if you call it the Gram an altcoin, really is on the up. So I think they've got pretty good timing, probably by luck rather than design, but the timing is good.
Right, certainly the timing does seem to be at least somewhat fortuitous on the short term, but I suppose I do have to wonder as well, when you touched on that point about Libra facing so much backlash and headwinds. As you say, Telegram with this project seems to have slid under a lot of regulators' radar, at least particularly in the US and Europe. But do you think there could be a risk of regulatory backlash on Telegram once it's launched, which could dampen any potential market release and future expectations? Or do you think they'll be able to slide on in earlier than regulators can act?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that the regulators will not take a very close look at what the Telegram application is trying to do. And Telegram also historically have been pretty aggressive against any governmental interference. For those people who know much about it, you know, they had a significant backlash out in Russia where they refused to give backdoor access to various institutions. So I think they are very experienced in this space. They are sort of experienced in how to, I suppose, combat unnecessary and unwanted attention, but they're not stupid. So they will know that there is going to be a significant focus on them, and I'm sure they've already prepared for that.
Yeah, certainly imagine they are on top of that. And as well, we've just heard, or recently had released the terms and conditions, came out on the 8th regarding their terms and conditions for how Telegram proposes to go ahead with the Telegram Open Network. As you already said, it's been a relatively secretive project with not much being publicly released, so every little morsel is worth snapping up. Some key points that they raise in their release is, I suppose what I'd say, the decentralized focuses of the Telegram Open Network, stating regarding taxes and regulation that they have no responsibility, that transactions are submitted via services, and the Telegram does not have direct control over the movement and development of the Telegram Open Network. How do you sort of interpret these terms and conditions, and do you think they sort of fulfill the promise that Ton was supposed to set?
Yeah, again, that's an interesting one, because up until now, the big institutional investors have stayed away really from the decentralized networks or exchanges. They just do not trust them. So then that sort of led to a rise of security tokens, and the security tokens are now heavily traded on the centralized exchanges. So Telegram has really sort of said, no, forget all that. We don't believe in the centralized approach. You can't have a single point of control. And if you are going to do this on a worldwide level, it has to be decentralized. I think it is going to be a very interesting battle that takes place. And I don't mean that in an aggressive way, but you have got still the decentralized and the centralized sort of looking at this as a very different approach. You've got the security tokens, which really are equities in another name. And now you've got the Ton network doing something fundamentally different. I honestly think that eventually the decentralized has to play out, because we're a global community now, but it isn't going to be a simple path.
Right, it certainly isn't going to be a simple path, and that's even highlighted by Telegram's own terms and conditions, where while they do stress those decentralized elements, they also state in their conditions that regarding termination, the Gram wallets may be terminated at any time or for any reason by the Gram wallet services, meaning that at the end of the day, as much as it appears decentralized, if the centralized figure can control the termination of a wallet, does that not risk having that centralizing pin still be in place, at least certainly when you compare to Bitcoin, for example?
Yeah, pretty much every wallet, though, has that term and condition. So, for example, at Crypterium, our wallets, we track every single transaction. And if anything that looks suspicious, for example, a transaction on the dark web, or we were able to track that there was some stolen tokens on a wallet, we will cancel that wallet. And we do not have to give the reason to the individual. We have to report it to authorities, but we don't have to actually give information to the individual. It's our duty of care on a global level. So I can't really see any difference here to what the traditional wallet does. The only difference is that they are so big that it opens, I suppose, bigger questions. But I don't see any other way that they could do this.
All right, certainly, there are technical limitations. They're innovating in a new sphere. Perhaps it is tricky for them to both innovate on all manners and work around that in a fully decentralized manner. But Austin, getting out of the weeds and into the bigger picture here, expectations on price, where do you see it going from launch? We've had some spectacular failures recently where some big IEOs, SDOs, or ICOs haven't managed to meet price expectations. Do you think Telegram will go the same way, or do you think they have a chance to really make it into the big time?
Well, as I say, timing is good. As you mentioned already, the first tokens were sold at sort of two price sets, 37 cents and 133, I think. So I can't imagine that with the current climate that they would come out at anything less than the 133. Expectation is very high. There hasn't really been anything big, since the announcements on Libra, and that really hasn't gone according to plan. As you said, there's been some not really that successful big pushes at the moment. So I think this is the first really big test for a new token. And I think the sentiment right now is very positive. Whether it's going to be a 133, whether it's going to be $4, whether it's going to be $10, I wish I could predict that. But I think one thing that Telegram is doing different than everybody else is that you can also buy from a reserve pool. And the reserve pool has a pricing mechanism. And that pricing mechanism, to some degree, will control the price of the Gram token on exchanges. So if you can buy from the reserve pool significantly cheaper than you can get them from the exchanges, you'll go to the reserve pool and vice versa. So there is a controlling element to this. What happens on launch is going to be interesting to watch. But I think over time, this is not going to be a token that fluctuates dramatically in price because of that reserve selling mechanism.
Okay, it might deal with some of those volatility issues that have been seen amongst other tokens that have attempted to become standards of currencies and mediums of exchange. All right, well, Austin, it seems like it'll be an exciting time regardless. The month of October set to be one perhaps for the history books. We'll have to see what does happen with this particular project, but so much to watch out for. So Austin, thanks so much for being with us, and stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.